Hello, and welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fatchett. In case this is your first time listening or you haven't listened in a while, here's the scoop. In addition to providing you with educational and entertaining photography related podcast episodes, I am also undertaking various adventures with the crew of the Starship Fibonacci. It helps keep me busy between episodes. Right now, the crew and I are trying to help a group of small space businesses get out from under the protection racket of a wealthy space businessman. You see, we've set up a system of complex, non lethal traps. An overly simple plan with overly complex traps, if you ask me. Perhaps they are, Fibonacci, but it's all part of the plan. We could just notify the Space Constabulary. But we are wanted by the Space Constabulary, Fibonacci. You didn't really think that plan through, did you? Speaking of plans, on this episode of the podcast, I sit down with my friend Spencer Lum from goextrabold.com to discuss how to craft the perfect homepage for your website, something that every business person, not just photographers, should listen to. Oh, the evil, wealthy space businessman and his evil space henchmen are approaching the first trap. Enjoy the episode right after this quick break. Hey, are you looking to add more dynamic content to your marketing? Do you want to drive customers to your website with videos about products, services, or content, but don't have the time to learn video editing software? Head over to nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/Animoto to try Animoto for free. That's right, you can sign up and try it out for free. Just drag and drop your photos and videos, or pick from the thousands of stock photos and videos in their library and create a video in just minutes. Customize fonts, colors, and layouts easily, or choose from their templates. You also get to select your music from thousands of pre-licensed tracks. Stand out in your customer's social feed. Videos get more likes and shares and click-throughs than any other content. Create videos in landscape, square, or vertical formats depending on which social media platform you are exporting to. Or, once you're done making one video, make a copy and convert it to another format to share on another platform. No need to make separate videos. Animoto is easy, intuitive, and doesn't require learning new software. Get started right away. Go to nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/Animoto. That's nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/ANIMOTO to get started for free. I am here today with Spencer Lum from Extra Bold. Today we're going to talk about the importance of your homepage on your website, something that photographers should really be focusing their energies on. Welcome, Spencer.
Hey, good to be here.
So why is it so important for photographers to, really consider their homepage copy?
Yeah, great question. And I knew you were going to ask that, and I'm spending a lot of time thinking about this. And it's kind of bouncing back and forth because sometimes there's this feeling like does it matter? Is it really that big a deal? And I mean, it depends how you see it. So, what I'm going to say is this. I mean, there's the obvious thing, of course. It's the first impression. It's the first thing a lot of people are going to see after they've made the decision to learn about you. And so, what I mean about, when I say it that way is that yes, they might have seen like a post or they might have heard your name from someone, but very often, like the point of commitment comes when they hit the homepage. And so, it may not always be like the first impression exactly, but it is still kind of a fundamental impression and one that's going to shape how people think. But I think if we pull back, there's also a bigger issue at play, which is that I mean, whether you're thinking about things in terms of the homepage or not, I mean, what a homepage has to do is similar to what your marketing has to do. And so you have to be able to, no matter what, you have to be able to make people listen. You have to be able to separate yourself from everybody else. And you have to be able to make people care, which is a little bit different from making people listen.
Yeah,
And if you can't fulfill those three functions, right? I mean, nothing else works. So the thing is, it's like, well, okay, maybe you don't use your homepage as your primary device, but even so, like creating a great homepage, if you really work through it, you will on that, as you do it, you will wind up defining those three things. And that just gives you so much clarity and so much focus with everything else you do.
So, yeah, getting people to care about what they're listening to is a really big, it's an important hill to get over when
Yeah.
you're talking about like your marketing and attracting clients. Like it's one thing to get people to listen to you and like take a look at your website, but it's another from getting that emotional hook so that they actually are invested in listening to you is very important.
Definitely.
So, this is one of the things, back when I like checked out your photography website years and years ago, one of the things I was very impressed with was you had everything on one page,
Hmm.
which I was always like, I can't fit all the stuff that I want on one page. Would you recommend, should photographers be setting up like a one page site, or what are the benefits of that?
Right, right. And, my answer would be a little different now than back then. And so I'll kind of talk about it in two different ways. And so first, I'm going to answer the back then question, which actually might be the less interesting of the two, but we'll see where this goes. So the thing to understand is that at the time I created that site, right? I mean, it is way dated, and so if you look at it now, it just doesn't work the way it used to at the time. But it was created at the very beginning when people were starting to use like the new CSS, all the stuff you're used to seeing now, where pages scroll and CSS is actually interactive and it's not blah blah blah, right? And so at that particular point, the ability to create an interactive single HTML based page that you could open in the browser without Flash and to display it all on one page made a really, really strong impression. And so even though that's largely graphic and it's technical, still, the point is that at that particular point in time, that would instantly grab people's attention. It would make people want to read. And so my goal was to first suck people in
Right.
by by how any method possible. And so that, and having been a designer before that, that seemed like an easy enough path. And then after that, all the content, it's all on one page, of course, but you can kind of scroll through certain parts and blah blah blah, and it's all baked into kind of one, like a single page interface. But that part is actually really, I mean, that's kind of it's well, I should put it this way. It's important to understand the function of it because you're always trying to, whenever people go on a homepage or any piece of content, the number one thing you have to do is you have to make people make a commitment to, well, listen, like I was saying, you have to make people choose to be interested, right? First
Right.
thought people have when they hit a homepage or when you read a post on Facebook, it doesn't matter what, is should I bother to
Right.
read this? But at this really subliminal level, before they start thinking about like, is this for me? Is this the type of content I care about? Does this person specialize in what I want? You have to fascinate people and intrigue people. And we've all seen this over and over with headlines. The one easy trick you have to know to get rich instantly. But obviously that doesn't work any longer. But the
Right.
idea behind those types of headlines is based on getting attention, right? And so if you can't get people's attention, people are, the odds that they're going to click off skyrocket. And so
Right.
it's important to kind of understand the function of the site at the time I created it because it was really kind of the one page format, the functionality of it was all designed to address that very first function to make people commit to say, huh, this is curious. I'm interested, right?
Right. And
And then
stay
after
there.
that, yeah, you got to get people to say, hey, I'm actually going to read. And then you can get them. If people aren't going to say, I'm interested, or let me see more, or huh, that was really, or be surprised, you can't get them a little bit surprised, then getting them to care becomes really, really hard. And so that's why I was saying, like, if someone goes on the site now, well, it's not going to do that anymore because we've seen a bazillion sites that do the same thing and that are done much nicer by this point. But at that particular time, that was the goal. And so that would be the first longish part of the answer, which is
It's the
that
background.
yeah, that's the background. But I would say the mindset is huge. Like people have to think and have to know that the number one order of business before anything else is you have to grab people's attention. So, okay, what happens after that? I mean, the next part, well, it kind of depends, right? I mean, I don't have an answer about whether a page should be a single page or multi-page. What I would say is, aside from the obvious fact that it's going to depend on your content, is that I would encourage people to create a structure that allows people to go deeper into the content. I mean, whether that's done through a single interface or you click on something, and I'm going to say probably in all likelihood, the best method for most people is going to be to have multiple pages, even though you might have a long scrolling page as an intro. But what I would encourage people to do is not think of things structurally like, should I have it be X long, or is it this format or that format? And what I would say is you always want to be thinking, well, how do I create amazing content that blows people away and that people can't stop reading? And so there's this misconception a lot of times that that's the same as being short or
Right.
brief or not having a lot of material. But it's not. People, when they're genuinely interested, they will read a lot. And usually, what people, the message people get when they hear that people don't like to read online is, I shouldn't write a lot. But that's actually the wrong message. The message people should be getting is, I need to create more interesting and even better content that just sucks people in, right? And so that's why I'd say for most people, clicking in and having stuff that you can read is going to be beneficial.
I
But
would also
you have
think
to
that maybe
yeah,
it's like a good way to think about it would be like you're leading people towards eventually, hopefully, contacting you or whatever the end goal is. That your content that you're writing, that is getting their attention. That you're breaking it up into different pages or whatever. That you're naturally like what's the next step? Like, oh, if I'm going to
yeah,
leave this page, what do I want to do? I'm going to go here. If I want to learn more about you, I'm going to go to this area of your website. Or if I want to contact you, which is immediately after seeing this first page, I know how to get there. I know how to get to that next step.
yeah, perfectly put.
So what would you say, since you work with a lot of photographers, but what do you say the most common mistakes that photographers fall victim to when they're like putting together their homepage?
I mean, I'm going to keep harping on that not grabbing people's attention thing. I mean, a lot of times people, you can think of it as like dating, right? I mean, when you date, you got to start off by I mean, your very first impression counts. What would that be in the dating world? It might be I mean, I shouldn't use dating as an example because my dating skills are absolutely like zero. But still, I mean, so what I imagine in my head is, well, you start off and you've got the basic things like how you present yourself, how you stand, how you talk, how you project your voice, etc., how you look. I mean, all those things, right? And so that's the first thing that makes someone say, huh, this person, there's something to this person, or I'm attracted to this person. And then you kind of have to flirt with them and keep them enticed and et cetera, et cetera. And like you were just saying, right, you need to lead people down a path. When people are dating, you take people down a path, and a homepage should do the exact same thing. And so a lot of times people move essentially straight to like marriage. And, and,
Contact
and
me.
yeah, it's kind of like, I mean, it's basically, here's how you contact me, or, I believe in like super, amazing photos that change the world and show the deeper, the incredible depths of humanity. And the thing is, like, you could liken that, like, in terms of dating, like, and maybe I am actually a good example for this, exactly because I'm so horrible at it. When I was dating, I always had this idea that people would just see that I was like really deep and thoughtful. They're gonna love me, but that's not how it works. If I would start talking about, I mean, it happens that I was a philosophy major, which is like the surest way to make sure people are going to be bored to tears and talk about philosophy. And I would think like it's going to show like how thoughtful I am and blah blah blah,
I'm
and
deep.
it would just put people to sleep. And in my head, what's going on is I'm thinking, if they see, right, if they see me, they'll think, whoa. But that's not how it works, because even though if you get to know someone and you really get along, at some point they might say, I love that you have this other layer or just something there, right?
Right.
But if you throw that out there first thing, they're not gonna think, whoa, I'm blown away and I gotta be with you. They're gonna think, oh my God, you're so boring. And you see it all the time that when people are trying to differentiate themselves and get people to care, they jump like straight to the, I mean, you can just feel it. They're trying to make their huge proclamation, thinking that's going to pull people in. And it's weird, but a lot of times something that is lighter and more trivial, but enticing and entertaining and interesting, that is what's going to get people in. So you always want to be thinking, like, I'd say the biggest mistake is people don't create a sense of curiosity and intrigue
Yeah,
from
do you
the
think
very get go.
they sort of like blast into it as opposed to like
Yeah.
saying like, oh, here's a little, don't you want to know more about me, don't you want to know a little bit more? And I think that there's two, like, I see it a lot too in like seeing other people's websites. I think one of the a similar analogy to that, what you're talking about, is like the people who are like, well, my work should speak for myself, like my photos
Yeah.
should be the thing that, you know, people see my pictures, they should immediately want to hire me. Well, there's a million other photographers out there who take great pictures. Like, you got to give them a little something. And I think that, like you're saying, the people tend to like come out and like, here's my big bold statement about, you know, photography and how I'm gonna, you know, change your life with my photos.
Exactly.
Which is sort of the equivalent of like going on the first date and being like, so do you want to get married?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on kids? We haven't ordered drinks yet, but I need to know this stuff.
Yeah, that is, I mean, that's exactly it, right? And it's too much. And actually, I want to throw in something since you talked about. I think I hear that all the time too, right? My pictures should speak for themselves. And the thing I actually I once put up this thing talking about like this video talking about homepage strategies and et cetera, and that was exactly one of the comments that someone had put up. And I was trying to explain that the thing is, you know, you got to get people to hire you. Like at the end of the day, right? You want people to hire you for you, and what that means is you want them to hire you for the thought process you put into your pictures. And so it's not just the end result, but it's how you approach everything you do. But that's always going to be invisible. No one can see your thought process just by looking at your pictures. Even like, you know, you go to a museum and you look at a world class photograph or a piece of art or whatever. And whenever you get the tour from someone who knows the whole background and they tell you the story, I mean, it's always like, it blows me away whenever I hear that because it's like, suddenly the picture becomes 10 times more fascinating when I hear everything the artist went through to get the picture or to create the piece of art or whatever, because that's when you understand the artist and not just like the sculpture or the picture or whatever. And so like let's pretend, for example, your specialty is you make people pose in a way that looks super natural. Well, the thing is that if you're really good at that, your couples, if you're a wedding photographer or if you're not, you know, and your subject, they are going to look so natural that people are going to think, wow, they're just really good at that, because that's what it means to make people look natural, right? And so they're not going to see, oh, you got them to be comfortable. What they're going to see is, what they're going to think is, oh, these people just look really, really natural, because
they're going to think it's the couple or the subject and not necessarily the photographer themselves.
Exactly. And so the only way you can show that is words and to explain what you do. And that's why you got to get people hooked in and then interested enough to read about like what's going on in your mind so that they see you as different from everybody else. And so it's like, yeah, people always think that pictures speak for themselves, but the thing is, like, people can't see the thought behind the picture.
We've had this conversation many times. Like people who looking at the photos, they're like, that's a nice picture. Whatever. They don't understand. Even when they like a photo, they don't necessarily know why they like the photo.
Yeah, so true. So true.
So when it, you know, so when a photographer is like thinking about like creating this sort of, you know, I don't know, gently welcoming, you know, enticing homepage for their website, what exercises would you recommend they do to come up with that copy or that just the text that's going to like speak to their particular audience?
Yeah. And so I'll go through like two high level things. These aren't exactly exercises, but I think they're so important and so rarely done that you know that's what I'm going to throw out there. But the first thing is, okay, I've talked about this idea that you need to get people attention, right? And so I just want to really quickly introduce a model called AIDA. So that's AIDA. And it's an acronym. And so what it stands for is attention, interest, desire, action. And so what you want to make sure to do is always be thinking of your copy in those terms. You are trying to first grab people's attention so they make that commitment to read on and they're interested. And so, I mean, and people should keep in mind that a lot of times, even when people choose to read, you don't want it to feel like homework or like it's boring. It just makes a world of difference if people say, I want to read versus, all right, this is somebody, let me do my due diligence and research this person. So the first level is like you always want to be thinking, am I creating something that is grabbing people's attention? Not am I showing how deep I am? Not am I trying to get them to contact me? Not am I bragging about myself? But really, you put yourself in your audience's shoes and you say, is this going to fascinate them? Is it going to make them curious? Is it going to make them say, what? Why? What's going on? Or is it going to make them laugh or something, right? Next step, the I stands for interest. And that's where you start to talk about what you do. And I'd say the big mistake there is again, people kind of rush it. They like to, we all, when we're creating content, when we're writing on a homepage, we all like to talk about what we do and what we do for our audience and how great we are. Because the idea is, again, like dating, if we talk about how great we are, then what's going to happen is that people are going to fall in love with us. But actually, it's one of the biggest mistakes out there, right? Is you want to talk about what your real goal is to talk about your audience and what their problems are and what's going through their heads. Because if someone is, if someone's thinking to themselves, it doesn't matter what. It can be the most mundane thing in the world. If they just heard a story from a friend who got screwed with a photographer who didn't show up, and then you, at that particular point, let's say reliability is your thing. I mean, if that's a thought that goes through your audience's head, and they hear you talking about it, they'll be riveted because you're talking about the problem that's in their mind, right? I mean, that's
Right.
not like, I mean, there are better examples of it.
That's
like
really specific.
right? But I mean, as long as you talk about something very specific to what your audience thinks about, you're going to grab their attention. And so it's a world of difference, though, from talking about what you're interested in and what you think you're good at. Because if people don't know you yet, they want to know how you solve their specific problem. So that's
Right.
the I, right? Talk about your audience's problems, their issues, their thoughts, their worries. The D is where you can finally start to connect the dots and start to talk about how you solve those problems. And even there, it should still be focused on how you solve the problems your audience has. But now you can start to talk about your approach and what you do. And then from there, of course, the last part when you get people to act. That's when the contact. That's when the reach out to me. That's when you tell them whatever, or you throw your offer, or sign up for my newsletter, or whatever it is that you want to get people to act. But usually people, like you said, they jump the gun, and either they try to move straight into look at me, or they move straight into here's how you can contact me. And if you haven't done the A and the I, nothing else works. And almost always, people just by human nature, we just want to skip over that stage because it's more fun to talk about yourself, and
Right.
it's just kind of the natural way people think.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so,
it's that thing that I think that when I was an actor back in my acting days, it's one of the things they teach you is to listen to other
yeah,
people instead of
yeah,
talking about yourself. And so, like, being a good listener, you really need to listen to your audience and think about. And I think that's one of the other aspects of this is really considering your ideal client or whatever word you want to use for this, but their particular thought space and what they're interested in, as opposed to thinking of it from your own perspective. It runs along all sorts of lines. Like even going into choosing pictures for your portfolio, I've known many photographers who are like, I love this picture. And I'm like, well, what do your clients think of it? And they're like, most people don't really care about that one. It's like, well, if people don't find that interesting and you're trying to get people to hire you, that's not necessarily the best choice. You have to look at it from how they're looking at things, because there are certain pictures that I've taken that aren't necessarily my favorite photos of mine, but that always get a reaction from people. And
yeah,
because they're in a different place than I am.
yeah,
And that,
yeah, exactly. I mean, I think I mean, actually, that's perfect because what I was going to say is the second exercise that And this really, I mean, this is so top level, and it's funny because I never do it. I always like forget about this, and this is kind of one of those things you can spend forever thinking about. But it really, I mean, the first time I heard this, I remember it just like it hit me like a sledgehammer because it seems so obvious, and yet I thought, I was thinking, how have I never ever thought of this? But what it is, right, is you want people like in any business, in anything you do, like when it involves like yeah, running a business, getting paid, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you're looking for the thing where people will pay you disproportionately for what you do. Or another way to put it is you're looking for figuring out the thing that you do that's kind of yours that people will pay more for. And so if you put up a picture, if you love it, but that's not the thing that people will pay more for, then you're not going to differentiate yourself, and you're going
Right.
to be stuck like competing in against this huge playing field where it's almost impossible to win. And yes, it does have to be the thing you do. It has to be something that's kind of unique to you, that you care for, that matters to you. But without that other half of the equation, it being something that other people value disproportionately, it's not gonna build your business, and then you're stuck in that race to the bottom where it's just everyone's just gonna say why your pictures look the same as everyone else, so how much can you throw in?
Right. Yeah, it's just I mean, like if you're, I've talked to people who are like, oh, like I'm they're showing these photos, and I say like, well, what's the purpose behind showing this picture? And they're like, well, that seems to be what everybody wants. And they're like, well, have you really like talked to the people who hire you? And when you kind of get the response like, well, no, I haven't really asked. And then you dig deeper and deeper, and you find out that it's not really what the clients want. It's what you're seeing from other photographers, what they're presenting, and just assuming
Yeah,
that's what
totally,
your
totally.
clients want. And that's a big problem, like is comparing yourself to somebody else or trying to do what someone else does, because they might be very successful, but because that particular photographer approaches it from the angle that you're talking about, that's what they do. That is their specific thing. That is their thing, and they know how to approach it. And if you're just going in, going like, well, I guess because so and so, shows that kind of picture, I should do that like that. So let me find someone in my portfolio. It's you're trying to just copycat somebody else without understanding sort of the mechanics and emotions behind it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's exactly right.
So as we sort of wrap up here, I guess my final question is, how often do you think that a photographer should go back and rethink their homepage copy, like and what their homepage, their setup is?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the answer is kind of always, and yet not nearly as often. I mean, it's kind of, it cuts both ways. Not nearly as often as some people do, and yet always at the same time. So, yeah, me always have a cryptic answer for everything. But the thing is,
It's
like the homepage is,
Spaceballs.
yeah,
How soon will
yeah,
then be now? Soon.
exactly. But I mean, a homepage. Sometimes people think of it as like a catch-all, like the magic panacea that's gonna fix everything. If you just put out this amazing homepage, it'll fix everything. And it's not like that. Exactly because people go through stages of interest, and exactly because you need to develop relationships. And so, if someone is visiting their homepage, changing it over and over as the only solution for their business without looking at however it is they get the word out, without looking at, let's say, building partnerships, or without looking at creating content, or without looking at blah blah blah. I mean, there are all sorts of different ways to do it. But whatever your mechanism is, if people are only looking to the homepage to solve everything, well, it's not going to fix that. And the there's no one piece of content or one page that can. Your content has to be kind of seen in its entirety, and it all has to fit together. But then at the very same time, kind of if you look at that fundamental purpose, well, I shouldn't say fundamental purpose of the homepage, but I mean with marketing, you are trying to find. I mean, you are kind of trying to find things like how to express yourself in a way so that people are disproportionately interested and attracted to you. And so you should always be adjusting it whenever you have new information. You should always be thinking, okay, why are people really hiring me? What are people really interested in? And your homepage should naturally be updated as you find that type of information. And depending on how you use it, it can help provide data and get responses from people as to what your audience is into. But it's not going to solve everything. And so it cuts both ways, right? Because sometimes I see that people just keep changing their homepage, thinking, "How come I'm not getting floods of people?" I'm like, "Well, because there's tons of other things that need to be done."
Right.
But then I see the opposite. Like people have the homepage, and it is so clear that it's. I mean, if your homepage can get, let's say, double the people to click and read and look through your pictures or contact you, I mean, that's a huge difference, right? And it's very, very possible. We see that type of thing all the time. We look at analytics, break stuff down, and see, track how people behave. And so, you always want to be updating it, and it should always reflect wherever you're positioning at the moment. But at the very same time, kind of, I would see it as kind of the byproduct of getting clear about your business and knowing what you're about and how you're bringing people in.
Not getting clear like Scientology, getting clear about like thinking clearly about your particular, about your brand and what you are trying to accomplish. Yeah, I think that's a really. There are people like you said it. There's no panacea. There's no magic bullet that is going to suddenly going to change your business life. That's going to you're going to write the perfect homepage and everything is suddenly going to fall into place. You have to do all the work on everything else as well. It has to all fit together. It's like a puzzle, and you have to. And sometimes, unbeknownst to you, puzzle pieces change while you're not looking at it. So you got to go back and take a look at it again and rethink it and adjust accordingly. That's something that I think a lot of photographers don't necessarily. They think okay, they sort of go by the adage, that old infomercial adage of set it and forget it.
That's right.
We're just gonna leave that there. If it's not broken, don't fix it, even if it could be working better. I think that's. It makes sense to me. Hopefully, it's making sense to our listeners as well. Hey, F 2.0, why don't you tell the audience what time it is?
And now for my favorite part of the show. What's that say? Useless information. Ugh, this is always death.
I think you offered some fantastic advice for people here, and I think it's now time for useless information. Spencer, I don't know if you were familiar with this, but did you know that yawning is contagious? Are you aware that when people yawn?
I've heard that.
Yes, because it's a subconscious reaction because your brain suddenly wants to take in more air when it sees somebody else do it. You automatically start doing it because you think, "Oh, am I getting enough oxygen?" But it actually happens faster. That reaction of yawning in response to someone else yawning happens faster amongst family and friends than it does amongst strangers.
Interesting. No, I did not know that. That is pretty cool.
But I think that you're subconsciously thinking you're trusting that signal from someone that you know, as opposed to you just see maybe your body's going I don't know that person. Are they giving me a subliminal signal that I should take or I shouldn't take?
Yeah. Well, it says a lot about how how people think, and not think, but how people are, right? There's a lot about marketing too, so that's good. That's
you're more likely to believe what someone you know tells you. As as far as a business goes, you get a referral from a friend or a relative, you're more likely to believe that than you are to a total stranger.
Yeah, that's great.
See how I tied that in? And I'll tie it all together.
Was very nice. Very nice.
Thank you very much, everybody. If you want to check out Spencer's work, you can go to extrabold.com. Is that correct?
Well, it's actually Go Extrabold.
GoExtrabold.com.
Yeah, couldn't get extrabold.com, so I had to put in the Go Extrabold.
Go Extrabold. Real Extrabold. Yeah. Go Extrabold.
Extra.
Thank you for being with us, Spencer. Really appreciate it. Hope to have you back soon.
Thanks. Good being here.
Well, you better start listening. Better start listening. Better start listening. Better start listening. Better start listening.
Call for reinforcements.
And we're back. The evil space businessman and his henchmen have been scared off and should never return to harass these small space businesses again, because that is how things work in real life. Ah, I love it when a plan comes together. I'd like to thank Spencer Lum for being on the podcast with us. If you'd like to learn more about how Spencer can help your photography business, visit goextrabold.com. That is goextrabold.com. If you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. And while you're at it, follow us on Twitter or Instagram at The Nerdy Photo, and you can get more... Oh, what's that? Looks like I got a new email. What's this? Oh, looks like some sort of online invitation service. Oh, hey, it's from Yuhahu the Observer. He wants to meet with us. This is very exciting. I have to go and tell the rest of the crew. Until next time, everybody, stay safe and stay nerdy.
Who's that coming back to town? You better start listening. Who's your heart been beating about? You better listen.